our second speaker, Eyra Abraham. She's the founder of Listen, a startup changing the landscape of adaptive technologies for people living with hearing loss using the latest in AI technologies. Listen is developing a mobile app that connects people with a hearing loss to a hearing world. Using vibrations and flashing alert notification, Listen brings attention to critical sounds such as siren and fire alarm in any environment right to your smartphone. The goal is to bridge the gap between the hearing world and those with a hearing loss, allowing the deaf and the hard of hearing to gain independence and security anywhere they are. The title of the talk is AI for Social Good, AI Solutions in the Disability Market. AI is positively changing the landscape of adaptive and assistive technologies for people living with disabilities. This presentation will highlight the latest successes and positive impact brought by new emerging innovative technology using AI. So I would like to invite Eyra to tell us all about it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Just to show of a hand, how many in this room consider themselves an AI geek? Like you love, breathe AI innovation? Okay, well, I do too. So back in March actually, I did the similar presentation with the Women in Data Science Convention. So if you saw me then, it's gonna be similar, but I hope to inspire all of you. So one of the things that I think that we are in a great, exciting moment in history for artificial intelligence, because I've seen the impact that it has on people living with a disability. And today I want to talk about some of those impacts, but also discuss why assistive technologies, adaptive technologies, benefit all of us. So before I begin, I usually like to give an overview of what it means about the disability market. And so this term, the disability market, was a term that was coined by a gentleman by the name of Rich Donovan. He wrote a book called Unleash Different. And in his book, Rich actually is a stock exchange. He worked in the New York Stock Exchange, and then he realized as someone living with a disability that there's so much potential for corporations in the United States and North America to capitalize in this market. And one of the things that we all understand in the disability market is that there are 1 billion people with a disability. So if you think about it, that's like 1 in 7 of us in this room could have some sort of disability. And one of the other things, we want to put everybody in the same room, we can make it equivalent to the market size of China. It has $1 trillion of disposable income for people living with a disability. And so that's a big shock for many people, especially organizations. And so now, if you are in the tech space, you start to see Google, IBM, Amazon, and other companies as well, just capitalizing on this market because they see the financial potential. But it was never always like this. And one of the main reasons, I would say, that comes under 3 things, and really because this is an industry that is often not overlooked and is not understood. And I usually think that it comes down into 3 key areas. And the first one is the actual definition of what do I mean when I talk about someone living with a disability. So we often assume that somebody who has a disability is the person in the wheelchair or the man that is walking down the street with a cane. But that market is really 30% of the whole 1 billion people. And we call them visible disability. 70% of them have an invisible disability, and that's essentially people who have cognitive disease or a cognitive disorder or people who have a learning disability. So that is really the overview of the disability market. But one big other problem that I've seen consistently within this market is unemployment. So when you look at unemployment rate, it's really high. There's over 50% of people living with a disability that are not working. And it can go as high as 80 and 90% in developing countries. And one of the main reasons I've seen as an excuse for many employers is the fact that we make assumptions. We have biases toward people living with a disability, right? And so one of the excuses that I've heard was, oh, they're going to be too challenging to train, they might not fit in with the team really well, or they're going to be really expensive. But luckily, we have an organization here in Ontario, through the government, the AODA, which is Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act, and they did the research, and they've proven that there is absolutely no excuse for those biases. In fact, people who have a disability and people who don't have a disability can actually work together without any issues, and they are performing just equivalently, so there's no distinction. But then you're probably thinking, well, how is this a $1 trillion market, right? Well, we have a new population that is adding to this, and that is older adults, people over the age of 65. All of us are going to be at one point, we're going to have a 50% chance of having a disability. And that's just a natural fact of life. But we all have a good interest in technologies, and we like to use it. And so that is one of the reasons why companies see a potential to actually continue to develop technology and that are accessible for people as they get older, that they can't use it the same way that they can in the past. And so with all of that information, the real underlying issue for many people with a disability is the fact that they want it independent. They want to be able to feel empowered to do the things that they really want to do in life. And this is something that I actually can identify with, because I am one of the 1 billion people living with a disability. When I was a young child, at the age of 3, I had a hearing loss through an ear infection. And as a result, I have been wearing hearing aids since I was a child. And so one incident that happened about a couple of years ago that really made me sort of see the world in a different way. And it was a late night, I went to bed, and typically when I go to bed, I would take off my hearing aid. And there was a late night fire drill in my condo building that I was living in Nova Scotia. And interesting enough that they decided that they were going to do a attendance. Of course, I'm not there. And the way I found out was through a letter in the mail through the property management company saying that this is a fire drill, you should have been leaving your apartment building, nobody should be staying indoors. And if it was a choice of mine, I would have gone. But it wasn't, because I was not aware. And so that was a turning point for me. And so I decided that, what can I do to solve this solution? And I went looking for a loading device specifically for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. And to be honest with you, I was quite appalled with the technology that is on the market. They cost over $1,000 for just a complete set. Just one room allocated for an alert device. So if you expected to go into your kitchen, your bedroom, and other places, you need to pay another $1,000. And then you think about the technology as being designed for someone who's a 90-year-old, who's just sitting in one place, not moving around at all, right? And so I did what many people who are deaf and hard of hearing, is that I chose not to listen, that this is not the option that I'm going to take. And so I decided to find the solution, and I did, with artificial intelligence. And so now I formed a company called Listenin', and we developed a mobile application that utilizes AI to help with sound recognition. So when you are anywhere, you can turn on the microphone of your cell phone, and it listens for sound all around you. And then when it has a match to a critical sound, like a fire alarm, or siren, or a doorbell, it will give you a vibration and flashing alert. And I am so passionate about this because I've seen the impact and the solutions that AI has provided for people within the deaf and hard of hearing community. But I'm also interested, as I do my research and I'm in this space, I've seen many other examples. And so this is what I want to share with you for the rest of my presentation. So the first example that I've seen was Microsoft. They have a new app. It's been around, for 3 to 4 years now, but it's called Seeing AI. And it's just for people who have vision impairment. It started with 12 developers in Microsoft who all have a vision impairment, and they decided that they wanted to use AI to help with sort of identifying objects in the environment. So this app is really a multiple features. One of the features is that it can scan for objects in the environment and orally tell you what it is that's being seen through the camera of your smartphone. It can also, if you are going shopping and you have paper money and you want to know what exactly the object is, it can scan it and tell you what you're going to be handing over to the cashier. It also has an ability to scan barcodes. So if you're shopping, you don't know what's on the store shelf, you'll be able to scan over and it will tell you what the product is in front of you. And also it can scan the room for your friend and your sentiment and find out if your friend is happy or sad right in through the application. And the interesting thing is when they use for all the AI geeks in the room, this is a convolutional neural network application. And interesting enough now, with the improvement of image detection, the accuracy is really high, but they still have a long way to go in terms of in the real world, we tend to see things not always in 100% full view. There's always certain objects that are obstructed from our view, and so that's the next level, is collecting images to be able to process that and start training those images into the application. So what I really like about this is the fact that this is very novel and got a lot of famous users. One of them is Stevie Wonder, who is now using this application for himself. But another example of a celebrity that had come out in the media is Selma Blair. And I don't know if you heard about Selma Blair, but she talked about having multiple sclerosis. And for someone who has a multiple sclerosis, you end up having a speech impediment, and also you lose your balance, so you need a cane to navigate spaces. But one of the interesting why I want to bring this example up from the company called Be CareLink, because this is a new way that I see the healthcare is going to be changing for many of us in this room. You know when you go to a doctor's office and you had experience, and then you go and you're telling your doctor all about the experience, and you're not sure if he really believes you or not. You think you're crazy. You might think you're crazy. Well, this is an app that a lot of people with multiple sclerosis will be able to input a series of tasks in the comfort of their own home as they're going through cognitive tasks, mobility tasks, and they can actually say, look, I think I'm getting worse, but the app can actually predict that and provide that to able to help with the patient to know where they're standing. And another thing that is really good is for the doctor's side, is to be able to give a better sense of a better advice to what is the best treatment for you. So that's where the machine learning was used to develop this application to help with the predictive analysis of future treatment that should be advised and recommended for the patient. And so that's why one of the things that I've noticed to people who have multiple sclerosis love about this application is the fact that I now have a control over the things that I want to be. I want to be part of my medical care. I am not a passive person in the process, waiting for the doctor to tell me what to do. And I can actually be active in the whole process. So that is one of the nice things about having AI to help people with multiple sclerosis. The other example is in the making. So there is something that is really exciting for people who have epilepsy. If you know someone who have epilepsy, they go through many different stages. Some people who have epilepsy will have a seizure maybe once in their lifetime. Some people will have it on a regular basis. And the treatments that are available for someone with epilepsy is probably a surgery, maybe some medication with a horrible side effect, or some people just can't do anything at all. But this is really impacting their quality of life, not knowing when you're going to have a seizure without any kind of notification. But in the University of Melbourne, they have created a prototype essentially helping people with epilepsy be able to detect, using convolutional neural network, a seizure 5 to 30 minutes in advance. And so over 16 years, they were training data of people who had epileptic seizures and were able to create the algorithm through the advancement in knowledge that we all in this room put into our work, into the artificial intelligence field, and they were able to leverage that. Because they said 5 years ago, they wouldn't have possibly been able to do this. They've been trying for many years. And now the false prediction rate score is like 0.06 every hour. And this is revolutionary, I mean, for people who have seizures. And because now, if you don't realize, some governments don't allow people with epilepsy on the road, simply because they can be in a danger for you and I. But can you imagine not having the freedom and the access to the life that we all have, that we often take for granted? So this is where I see opportunities for technologies when they come out and be a real and live in use, that people living with a disability will be able to have access to things that we often take for granted. And so the other example that I wanted to share with you today is related to a gentleman in the UK, Zafar. He has a brother who has autism, and his brother, when he was really young, was not able to read or write at all. But Zafar actually had a cell phone and noticed his brother was engaging with it quite longer period of time. He was like, well, why is that? Like, maybe I should start exploring application for people with a learning disability. And so he found a few on the internet, but realized they were either too difficult or too easy, and his brother sort of lose his attention, and he wasn't as motivated. So he decided that he was going to do it himself, and I'm going to create an application using machine learning. And this is it's similar to the Netflix recommendation application that we've seen. And what it does is, if you have an autism, you actually complete a series of lesson plans, and through the results of those lesson plans, a machine learning algorithm will be able to provide you with more lessons that is matching your specific skill set. So this has been a great technology that had helped many people, including Zafar's brother, who now knows how to read and write. And also many schools in the UK are using this application. And so the final example that I want to share with you came out just May by Google. And this example, why I want to share with you, because it's related to the fact that some things that are developed for people who are just living with a disability can also be very useful for all of us. And this Google Live Transcribe is an application for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, who, if I'm in a room like this, I'll be able to read, get a transcript of all the conversations that are being said. And I have to say, this app is spot on when it comes to translating compared to a human person who's actually doing the typing and doing the translation. And so what I've noticed that it can need help if you have a speech impediment or you have an accent. It has really good at interpreting it. And you have to understand that this very fundamental core algorithm is the same that we have for Alexa and our Siri whenever we want it to play our favorite music. So to conclude, really, I want to say that we live in a world where there is no distinction between diversity and inclusion and innovative technology. Whatever we build for the people living with disability can really add value and impact. And I don't think of it just as a nice to have, I really think it is a must have, because truly, we all benefit. So, thank you. Perfect, do you have any questions? Yeah. Either way?
Either way. You choose.
I can choose? Oh, okay.
You can choose. Just
I see one gentleman in the back there.
Just choose somebody closer.
Sorry. I'm making you work.
Thank you. My name is Folarin.
Hi.
So a wonderful presentation, and I enjoyed the examples of the people who are and the companies who are developing AI. But I actually didn't get from your the app that you're developing, I did not get a technical understanding of what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
If you can actually give us some insight into what you're doing
Sure.
into this industry, I would really love to hear that.
No, certainly, and I'd be happy to explain. So basically, one of the challenges with existing hearing and adaptive devices is the fact that you need to have a specific sound in order to receive an alert. So if you were to buy an alerting device today, you have a transmitter and then you would need a receiver. And the transmitter is placed in one location of the house or the indoor space, and the receiver, which is able to connect with it, will help it with the detection. So I thought, well, we don't really necessarily need the transmitter and the receiver, and especially when we have artificial intelligence, because if we can train specific audio sounds related to fire alarm or siren, it would be easier for the user or anybody using the mobile application to get the detection. So when I first approached this project, I went through the convolutional neural network route, and it's a natural thing that people would do with, because there's a lot of similarities between image classification and sound classification. But as I got into the research, realized that our human ears are not the way our eyes work and the way our ears work are two different organs, and they operate in different ways. And so there had been new ways of approaching it through using long-short term memory, LSTM, in terms of an algorithm for machine learning. And so I thought that's something that I'm looking to explore even further and in depth. But as I'm completely, I was in computer science and then I completely left the industry and then now I come back to it. It is constantly changing. I noticed over the last few years, especially with Google really pushing for audio recognition, and I think maybe has a lot to do with the fact that we have we're trying to do the training for cars and sort of automating driving, and there's a need for the sound capability as well as the image capabilities into these applications. So I've seen a lot of changes in terms of the algorithm and the approach. So that answers your question.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh, that's it. Thank you.